Good evening, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the day too. For this session, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Amit Zavery. He is currently Vice President, General Manager, and Head of Cloud Platform at Google Cloud. Amit has been instrumental in driving the strategy and operations which took Google Cloud to 33 billion plus revenues, and is one of the fastest cloud providers. Today, we'll be talking and hear from him about his journey, his role in technology, and how the AI values impact the industry and day-to-day life. And to facilitate this discussion, I have a great pleasure introducing Jillian Manus. She's a managing partner at Structure Capital in San Francisco Bay Area. She's a frequent global speaker. She's been featured at Bloomberg News, CNBC's Squawk Valley, and her personal mission in life is what she calls innovation diplomacy. She's been frequenting the global conferences. She just finished her European tour of many countries, where she's driving the value of AI, value of innovation, and how it impacts day to day. So through a casual conversation in this session, unlike the morning session, we talk about products and technologies, we talk about the human side of technology and how this technology gently aligns our leaders in technology and impacts our day-to-day life. So with that, please welcome Amit and Jillian.
Hello, everyone. All right. So I have always believed, and I'm sure a lot of you do as well, is that it's rarely the products that fail. It's most often the people. And so with this wave of, like I would say, tsunami of AI, I think it's more important now to know who's building these products, not just what we're building. And so that's why I'm very honored to speak to you today and to know and to understand a little bit about you, who's building, right? And a little bit about your life. Is that okay?
Sure, we'll try.
Okay.
It's not a normal conversation I have.
Yes, I realize that. I got that. So you were born, and then what? Okay, no, all right, never mind. I'll give you a softball. So what innovation or what point in your life or person drove you towards this path that you're on right now?
Yeah, it's just, I grew up in India. My grandparents moved from one state, which is Gujarat, where they were originally from, to a state called Bengal.
Oh, right.
Right, which is quite far in the west to east. And they took that journey without knowing anything, without doing any kind of, didn't know anyone there.
Right.
And this was in 1935 or something like that.
Right.
A long, long time ago. For them, it's almost like me moving from India to US.
Yes.
Right? Because I didn't know anyone. This was in the 1980s as well. And there was no internet. I had no clue what I was getting into when I came to study here. I only seen a picture in a book.
Wow.
That was it. So it's a similar kind of journey for me. It was very inspirational to see them take a big challenge like that and take the risk of moving to a completely different location and build the life out there. Right. So they built, my grandfather built a business there. Oh. My father was born there. We lived there most of the life there. So it's kind of similar kind of inspiration I got from him to willing to take the risk.
Right.
I have no idea what I was getting into and be able to try that. So that's kind of started my journey at least.
And so if right now we talk a lot about what I call investing in values, not just valuations, because I think values are very critical right now. And I'm wondering, what are some of your values? How do you incorporate them into the workplace? And just in terms of your work in general?
I think you're right. And I think especially the way we are in this industry, especially with AI, I do believe anything you are using has to have some kind of meaning behind it now, right? Because it's going to change the lives of people, and it could positively or negatively impact them.
Yeah.
If you're not thoughtful about it.
Yeah.
And that's what I appreciate. At least what I have really liked and learned about at Google specifically is the having some values and principles behind all the technologies we build typically. right? And AI was one area which I think now that everybody's been talking about, it is something which Google did for many, many years, and they had principles around it. I mean, they've been defining those things and very clear inside and externally about what those values should be. And similarly for me, I think I appreciate the idea of like doing no harm kind of thing, or having principles around making sure that things are not used for biases, or use it in some ways where it's going to be harmful for the humankind. Right, so those kind of things I appreciate, and similar, I do believe kind of doing the right thing, and a lot of times it's very hard to make those decisions.
Yeah.
But kind of going back to those basics in any product you build or any technology you invest in, how is that going to be helpful, and is going to make anybody better, and how are you going to be able to really change some of the way people do things with it, is important to me.
I think, unfortunately, the perception is that somehow big corporations, like what you're saying, is very much part of Google, which is a set of values, is to do things the right way. And I think that's a critical piece that really needs to be conveyed. And it stems from a person, because I do believe that everything we design is an extension of ourselves. So every fear, every bias is part of what we're building. So if we don't think about that, we're not really mindful and intentional about doing the right thing, then we will do the wrong thing.
No doubt, no doubt.
No doubt.
And I think, as you're pointing out, I think when you're picking technology, you do have to kind of look at what is the basis for it.
Right.
Right. And I think in the early days when we were looking at internet, or even like mobile, or even previously just computer evolution, it was definitely aiding people. Right. It was kind of helping people improve their lives, but it was not, I mean, of course, transformed many things, but it took it many, many years. And I think the thing which we have to be watchful and be aware of with AI, the time has shrunk, but it's also even much more powerful transformation. Right, so how do you really think about that applicability to you, and are you picking the right things? And are you forcing companies to also think about it? It's also an important part of it. So I think you have to do it internally inside an organization, but you also have to do it from externally. And I think those things do matter.
No, absolute. And I think we talked about this a bit, but I think the fact that the timeline here is so condensed, whereas internet, it took some time for people to adopt it, and they did it on their own timeline. I think right now, AI is really coming at us full force, and that's creating all sorts of fears, and yet we're excited, and it's a dual situation, and I'm not quite sure if there's an answer to this.
No, I think you're right. I mean, there's a lot of anxiety, and there's rightfully so.
Right.
I think this Gen AI and the technologies we've been building, and what capabilities are pretty impressive, but also can be misused.
Right.
Right. So I think there is anxiety from everyone, like how will this impact their life? Because everybody, it does at an individual level, it does matter.
Right.
Right. And we talk about corporations when they think about like, okay, we're going to release something, but once it is out there, you can use it in very different forms and shapes versus what you might have envisioned.
Right.
That's why I think if you look at what people, of course, say Google was late at some of the things in terms of releasing the products, but there were kind of internally debates about keeping some of these things, making sure it's properly managed, there's the right principles to it before you kind of give it out to the world. So it took some time, but I think it's an important thing to always still consider that, instead of being rushing out things and then realizing that, oh, this was not the right thing for the world.
Yeah.
Or, because I think it does matter.
It absolutely. And is there any product that you're particularly proud of?
No,
I mean, it's like asking someone who their favorite child is. I realize that. But if
I've worked in enterprise software for 30 plus years. And I think as a lot of people who are not in enterprise software don't realize, it's a boring pieces of software typically, right? It's not most exciting. Okay, what do? We help you manage your finances in a business, or you're building things to really build an application. So a lot of these things are very hardcore technology and improving people's businesses in typically, right? But I've been I've worked in many areas across my career. I always enjoy the first project I did, to be honest, still is an area which I'll get exciting, is why we were building some technology called payment server. Right, which is like in 1994, 93, the internet was just becoming e-commerce oriented. Like, how do you now connect those applications you're building in the e-commerce to payment services?
Okay.
And that was a big challenge and technology which didn't exist. So I got a chance to build that, and I learned a lot from it. And a lot of things after that has been that foundation in terms of how do you
Right.
build complicated systems, simplify it, how you make things be able to integrate and be able to deliver a better experience for users. And that kind of helps me with any new products I build typically.
So I think that, I mean, when I'm talking to a lot of people, they're saying to me, you know, AI is part of a natural evolution. This is what I keep hearing, and I keep thinking, okay, and they said everything it is, but it is foundational, because like electricity was foundational, there are certain innovations that's foundational, and there are certain innovations that's transformational. This is foundational because this will touch every aspect of every part of our lives. If that is true, one of the points you had made to me in an earlier discussion was around the principles of AI. If in fact it touches every part of our life, is it going to change our principles? Are we changing its principles? Are we programming its principles?
Yeah, no, I think, as you point out, I mean, AI is going to be pervasive, just like, I think if you realize what happened with cloud.
Yeah.
The cloud became so pervasive, nobody now thinks about building non-cloud-based
Yeah.
applications. Sure, you can still do things in terms of on-premise, but it's usually still a private cloud kind of environment. You're using the same architecture principles when you're building the next generation applications in the cloud as well, right? So AI is becoming very similar. It's going to be in every application going forward.
Right.
I mean, I don't think so anybody's thinking of building non-AI based applications anymore, right?
Yeah.
Typically because there's a lot of value and power which you can bring with AI. I think the principles, as you point out, you still have to make sure it can deliver value to users. Okay. Otherwise, it's useless. I mean,
Right.
you can have all this AI and fancy stuff, but if it's not going to be helping a user do their job better, improve their lives, or even really make them the business successful,
Right.
it's not going to be helpful. So like, how do you now take the basics of building enterprise applications and then marry that with bringing AI into it and keep it guarded enough that it still can be productive and not create harm?
Right.
That's, I think, the way we've been thinking about how do we bring all these things together and make it very useful for startup community, developers, builders, businesses.
Yeah.
But put some guardrails around it.
Yes.
So that there is some ability to control the harm around it as well. So.
Right. Well, guardrails is such a lightning, rod right now to put guardrails around AI. That seems that you really can't because it's so fast moving. How do you really put it, how do you keep it in a lane? But you don't want to keep it in a lane because that's part of the interesting is I think it has feet. It's going to run on its own. Hopefully it won't run away from us, right? And I know that Google is one of the leading engines for, 90% of startups? I mean, I read this?
Yeah, I think what we've been, of course, over the last year or so, investing aggressively in making sure our Gen AI capabilities can be available to as many startups as possible. And we've been fortunate enough, we have probably around 90% of Gen AI startups running on GCP, which has been a good achievement for us. And it's also been very good learning for us because we get to work with a lot of entrepreneurs who can give us a lot more feedback in terms of what they need, how they can get value from what we do, how we can keep our platform open and flexible enough so that they have enough choices, but we can keep on growing together, right? So that has been our view on this area as well. So.
Yeah, it was stunning to hear that data point, that you have 90%. I mean, it seems that the perception is there are 2 or 3 big front runners here, but it seems like Google is a little bit ahead of everyone. Would you agree? Or in some ways?
I think the way to look at it, I don't think so there's any way to, it's too early.
Yes, it's too early.
I think it's still going to be a huge amount of innovation. There are a lot of other vendors who have done a lot of impressive and good work in this area.
Right.
I think the thing which Google kind of differentiates itself is that years and years of investment in this space.
Yeah.
Right, we have been working on AI for 8-10 years, if not longer, with a large research community inside the company who have built a lot of the basic building blocks as well as products now which are out there and are really leading the thoughts behind it, right? Helping the industry broadly.
Yeah.
So I think we can stand on our own in terms of, we can do all these things properly.
Right.
while we are also working with the community to kind of making sure that we can also absorb and bring third-party technologies into our ecosystem, right? So
Yes.
the goal is to really have an ecosystem
Okay.
versus only Google-led.
Yes.
So there's multiple vendors we work with. They provide support for other models to be available in our platform.
Yeah.
Even open source, third-party competitors, as well as our own.
Yeah.
And that gives choices to the customer, and that has really helped Google Cloud broadly grow. In general, even from the day one when we started building our Google, it's always about open technologies, open standards.
Yes.
We started with Kubernetes, which was invented at Google, which became kind of the industry standard for cloud now, and we just open sourced it. Similarly, a lot of the work we're doing around AI as well, we've been doing like Tensor is an open source technology out there. Things we do now, of course, around the work we're doing with LLMs. We have technologies which are open source there as well.
Okay.
So that's always been the goal, is to ecosystem driven.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is helping our business, but also helping the community.
Yeah, it's very much part of your brand. When people think about Google, it is about collective intelligence. It is about cooperative intelligence. And I think that in some way distinguishes you very clearly from the others in this field. And perhaps maybe there's more of a sense of trust because you already have always brought in and listened to others. You haven't tried to isolate yourself. Yeah. And I've always thought that Google, right now the word trust is a currency. And if a company can amass that level of trust and currency with their customers, I think that is going to take you very far. Yes?
Yeah, it's just an important thing, right? And I think that's why, if you look at, it took us some time to build a cloud business. But we were deliberate enough to think through it in terms of how we build an ecosystem, which takes always more time.
Yeah.
Right, and how do you support the broader set of developer community and other things and startup. So it takes time before you can build that business, but once you build a lot of those scaffolding around it, I think it makes a difference.
Yeah.
So, I think we have earned the trust, and we continue trying to make sure we keep the trust, right, which is always an important thing. And of course, we make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a large company, Google is 100,000 plus people, and there will be a lot of variations. You can't expect everything to be exactly the same and perfect.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same challenge a lot of other vendors face as well. But for us, it's always been like, can you look at it and can you fix it?
Yes.
Right? And we do have those conversations on a regular basis inside every team.
Yes.
Like, how do you learn from your mistakes and also take feedback from customers or partners and learn from sometimes competitors and see what we need to do better. And if we can keep on doing it better, we'll keep on growing. I mean, that's the whole goal.
Are we moving more towards, which I think we have to with AI, a more collaborative world, because we have to share data, and that in itself makes us uncomfortable. And so at what point will people really be able to feel confident that each other's data is only going to better our world rather than somehow pit each other against?
Yeah, no, I think the data part is going to be tricky always.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter which is AI or non-AI.
Yeah.
Right, on the enterprise side, and again, I don't work on the consumer side, so I'll stay away from a lot of what's going on there. But on the enterprise side, we've been very careful and clear about that. If we are going to have our technologies used by a customer, the data they have is owned by them, and none of the data goes and improves a model which can be used by anybody else. We're very clear in our principles. We have defined them. We can share that with our customers, and we adhere to them. So that way, the customers are going to get value of doing training with the information they have with using our models, and then they can decide what they want to do with that for their own usage.
Right.
And it doesn't impact anybody else. It doesn't help anybody else except their own business as well. So that makes them a little more comfortable. And our goal is to really make sure that they are successful anyway. So that helps out from our perspective as well.
This is a very critical point. I'm so glad you said that, actually, because it gives people a level of confidence, and what you said is that you're investing in trust, right? You're building and investing in trust. So many years ago, a nun once said to me, and I was very small, she said, Jillian, she said, everyone, and I'm saying to all of you too, she said, everyone is born into someone else's story. She said, our story is not our own. it's our grandparents, it's our great-grandparents. And what we do is actually continue that narrative, right? And so now you have this narrative and you have this new frontier. What do you want that narrative to be? Not just for yourself, but really for all of us.
Oh, that's a tough one. I think if you think about it, from my perspective at least, I definitely want to make sure that we improve all the people we work with. Right? I can provide them some technology, provide them some solutions, and also provide them capabilities which improves their lives. Right? And I think I have been always focused on more helping businesses typically.
Yeah.
But also that's important because businesses feed eventually a lot of other families around it, right? So how do you improve their capabilities? How do you improve their lives? And how do you really address their pain points?
Right.
Right? In a understanding way.
Yeah.
Right? And not force something which might not really be worthwhile or going to help them at all.
Yes.
Right? So that I think that over time the narrative needs to be that, is this going to help someone?
Yes.
And is it going to improve things?
Yes.
And can it be done in a reasonable way?
Yes.
Right. So bringing those kind of principles together, and then can you deliver something which is over time really going to be beneficial?
Do you think, and you touched about this briefly a while ago, but do you think there is a path towards peace? And will AI help us to better understand and maybe communicate with each other so that this world does not totally disintegrate before our eyes?
Yeah, I think you're asking for AI to do too much.
Well, now I am. Maybe now I am. But I think that it may, I don't know, I can't help feeling and having maybe the hope.
No, I think technology hopefully helps in general, not just AI.
Right.
Right. I think we have come a long way, right, in terms of our communication capabilities, connectivity to the world.
Yeah.
And I think no longer information flow is so easy.
Yeah.
There's no you can be anywhere in the world and get the same information typically,
Yeah.
which is a big different world than many years ago, right? So I think it's similarly with technology. If there's a better way to help and improve and provide that information easily, that is helpful. I think we, of course, have a lot of other things we have to solve, the social media and what gets done with that, and how do you provide information or prevent misinformation in many cases, a lot of propaganda. And that's what I think a lot of the AI technologies we are at least deploying is to really find those malicious things, especially in security side. Cybersecurity is a huge area of concern, right? And everybody suffers from that. There are a lot of state actors who take this technology, and that could be used in a harmful way, as you saw some of the data leaks from government sites and other things like that in the US and even in Europe and other things like that. So I think it's generally, can you use AI or technologies in general to really protect yourself and prevent any misinformation, and really guarantee that what you're seeing and reading is accurate and true, and it's not fabricated.
Yeah.
But that I think is where I think we are at least investing heavily in our products to ensure that happens. Even in the consumer side with the Google.com and all, amount of people who work in that to really, I mean, think about it, they're kind of taking data from the world.
Yes.
And how do you make sure that what you see is accurate and real?
Yes.
That's not easy technology.
No.
Right? And that's what we've been building for many years, and we're deploying that also for our enterprise software now, learning from what we learned from the consumer team. Like, how do you make sure that things you're building, the applications you deliver to your customers, all that can be real, guaranteed, the information is accurate, it is trusted, and also licensed in many cases, right? So
I think this is actually mission critical right now. I believe that what you're doing, there is so much misinformation. We don't know what to believe anymore. You know, we don't know what not to believe. We don't know what to believe, and so I'm really, and there's so many bad actors that if Google can really help us, and everyone, we need help from everyone. Okay, I'm going to give you, I know we're running out of time, but I'm going to give you a last question. Okay. I have asked this question to almost 100 leaders, thought leaders and religious leaders all over the world for many years. And I've had many different answers, all that they started me. And maybe all of you can answer this question too as I ask it. So I always ask, I lead with what?
All right. I would say empathy.
I love that.
Oh, thank you.
Why so? Mike?
Oh, thank you.
Truthfully, that's the first time, and I've asked this over almost literally, as I said, up to 100 people. I have never heard someone answer empathy. Why empathy?
I think it's an important, without that, it's very hard to know what you're doing, I think.
Right.
You have to kind of put yourself in somebody else's shoes to kind of understand what's going on before you try to do something, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what we all need to do, and I think that's what we're all taking away from this conference as the final word here, is that to lead with empathy. And I thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. This is interesting.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Thank you all.